Hey everybody, this is Cecil Alexander with Jazz Lesson Videos, and today I'm going to be talking about some tips for playing over vamps. Vamps are chords or short chord progressions that go on for an extended period of time. Many people feel that because of the lack of harmonic variety in vamps, that it's difficult to be creative over them when you're soloing, but that's exactly what I'm going to help you with today. If you feel like digging a little bit deeper into this topic, feel free to check out my latest resource with Jazz Lesson Videos, 24 Vamp Etudes. In the resource, you can find my approach to soloing over one-chord vamps, short chord progressions, as well as modal standards such as milestones or impressions. You can find the link to this resource in the description below, and you can feel free to use the coupon code VAMP5 for an additional $5 off. First, I'm going to play an etude that comes from the resource over the tune Impressions by John Coltrane. And this one is going to focus on the use of harmonic substitutions, specifically third substitutions. So in this etude, I'm making use of harmonic substitutions over this long D minor 7 that we have in the first half of the tune. So one of my favorite harmonic substitution techniques to use is third substitutions, and this is something I lifted from John Coltrane. So if you have D minor 7 you're playing over, you can play in substitutions that are based off of major thirds or minor thirds away from your tonic. So you can play substitutions based off of F minor 7, A flat minor 7, and B minor 7, as well as F sharp minor 7, and B flat minor 7. So our first use of this substitution is going to happen a couple measures into the etude. So we're going to have this line. So this line is going to make use of a major third substitution. So we're starting in D minor, our key center, and then we slowly slip into like a B flat minor 7 sound. And this one is going to be kind of closely tied to playing off of the 5 chord, really with just one note difference, which is going to be that A flat. So if I was playing like a B flat minor with an A natural, that would be really closely related to like A altered. But here we have that A flat, which kind of, I think, adds a little bit more color to it and is one of my favorite substitutions to use over a static minor 7 chord. So our line is just using triads and 7th chord arpeggios out of that B flat minor. So we start off with this B flat minor 7 arpeggio, and then an F minor 7 arpeggio. And then we slowly are going to slip back into that D minor tonality using some chromaticism. So I kind of view that C natural as being our first note, like inside of the D minor. And we get there using that enclosure, that D flat belonging to that B flat minor key center. And then for that next measure, we're pretty much completely in D minor with the exception of some sort of stair-stepping chromatic enclosures to kind of decorate the scale sound. And then we kind of further restate the D minor tonality with just a decoration on a 5-3-2-1 melodic sub. Right, so that's going to be 5, flat 3, 2. There's our chromatic approach into the root, and then we just leap down to the 5th. So you can get a lot of color by using third substitutions, and I'd recommend kind of playing around with different third substitutions to see which ones you like the sound of the most. My personal favorites are going to be a minor third up, so D minor 7 to F minor 7, and D minor 7 to A flat minor 7, so that's playing a tritone below or above, and then the one that we used in this example, which is going to be a major third substitution of D minor to B flat minor. But you can feel free to kind of mix and match those different substitutions to create sort of substitute progressions. Sometimes I'll create lines that highlight, various third substitutions. So, a line that is going from D minor, B minor, B flat minor, F sharp minor, F minor. Might sound something like this. Another example. So our next tip for playing over Vamps is also going to come from this etude on Impressions by John Coltrane. And this one, we're going to be taking a look at playing off of closely related chords just to highlight different areas of the scale. So in this line, we're still going to be on this D minor 7. This is going to happen towards the end of the form after we go from D up to E flat, back down a half step to D. And in this line, we're just going to be playing thinking of G7, basically. And this is going to allow you to kind of think of highlighting, some of those really interesting notes within the D minor or D Dorian scale. So our line is going to sound like this. So in that line, you can kind of hear that we're moving between like a D minor sound to a G7 sound, particularly with that first half. All right, so that B to G at the end of the measure kind of states, this G7 sound that's going to be the third of G7 up to the root of G7. And those are notes that, we might not normally think of highlighting, especially when we're in the middle of like a minor line that's composed of a lot of eighth notes, right? So those are kind of the juicy tensions that you want to highlight in order to get more of that Dorian sound. Thinking of like G7 over D minor 7. So within this line, just kind of breaking down the different melodic concepts we have going on here. We start on the flat third of D minor. We have this chromatic approach. It's going to be falling on a strong beat, so that G sharp happens on a strong beat. That's something I like to do a lot, just kind of add more of a snaky quality to my lines. And then we hit the flat seventh of the scale, and I'm kind of thinking of this as being like the fourth of the G7 that I'm implying. So I target that third, kind of resolve the fourth to the third using a chromatic enclosure. Leap up a sixth to that G natural. And then we have some rhythmic variation in here, which is also kind of a cool way of just adding a little bit more forward motion to your lines. So I'm going to hit that flat seventh of that imaginary G7 on beat 2. And then I do this little sort of trill here, rhythmically giving some 16th notes. And then I'm thinking of resolving this like sixth within the G7 or G dominant scale down to the fifth, continue down the scale, hit that E natural. That's going to be like the ninth of my D minor 7. And then I have this nice phrase ending of just, all right. So one more time, the full phrase. And even with that phrase ending, you can kind of hear like kind of a resolution into G7 there. Our next tip is going to come from the etude on Chameleon, which is just going to be a 1 minor to 4/7 vamp. But this one's going to make use of some more harmonic substitutions. And this time, instead of just using one harmonic substitution, we're going to be using a couple different ones to create sort of a substitute progression underneath the original progression. So this one is going to start with this little E flat 7 cell. which is something that I like to use quite a bit. It's kind of coming out of like an E flat dominant pentatonic scale. Which is a sound that McCoy Tyner would use a lot, as well as John Coltrane, particularly over minor chords. So if they had like this B flat minor sound, they would use like the E flat dominant pentatonic scale, which is going to give you the fourth, fifth, the sixth or the 13th root, and the flat third. And just against an E flat 7, that would be root, second, third, fifth, flat 7. So we're going to take advantage of some of those minor third substitutions that we were talking about before, starting with this E flat 7. Then we move up to like a G flat 7. So in this instance, over this 1 minor to 4/7 vamp, I'm centering a lot of my ideas melodically around the 4/7, just because I really like the sound of, implying a lot of dominant vocabulary over a minor chord, like we did with that Impressions etude. So we're going up a minor third to this G flat 7 sound, into A7, and then instead of moving up another minor third from there, up to C7, we move up to B7. And then I create this resolution of like flat 2/7 to B7 into 1 minor. So it's like a tritone sub into the 1 minor chord. So the progression we have going on underneath this 1 minor to 4/7 again is E flat 7, G flat 7, A7, and then up a whole step from there to B7, and then into the 1 minor 7 chord. So, kind of mixing and matching third substitutions as well as more functional harmony. But you could also think of that B7 as being a major third below the E flat 7 that we're centering a lot of those ideas around. But that's something I like to do quite a bit, just to kind of create, unpredictable tension, is kind of have this full progression going on underneath what the rhythm section is playing. So our next tip is also going to come from the etude on Chameleon, and this one we're going to be taking a look at mixing modes or mixing scale sounds. So this one's going to happen over the E flat 7, so the 4/7 in this progression. And we're going to start by just kind of ascending using like a Lydian dominant scale. Right, so you could also think of that as B flat melodic minor. They're going to be the same scale. So we have that A natural up to B flat, C, D flat, E flat, up to F. So E flat Lydian dominant is going to be the 4th mode of the B flat melodic minor scale. When I'm soloing using melodic minor modes, I usually will just think of playing the parent scale over different chords. So rather than thinking of like a E flat Lydian dominant scale shape, I would think of just B flat melodic minor over E flat 7. And, coincidentally, that allows you to highlight more of the kind of characteristic scale sound of that mode than if you were just kind of playing, thinking of that scale shape. So we're going to start off with, again, that E flat Lydian dominant passage. And then we hit the natural 4th of that E flat 7. So this is transitioning more into like a E flat Mixolydian sound. We resolve that to the 3rd. Then we again sort of pivot to the sharp 4. All right. Go up the scale. We have like a bebop scale passing tone. And then the flat 9 as a chromatic approach note to the 9th, and then just up to the root there. So one more time, the whole phrase. So very subtle, differences or tonal shifts happening there between the sharp 4 and the natural 4. The important thing to note melodically is that I'm using that sharp 4 kind of like a leading tone in the phrase. I'm using the natural 4 almost like just a passing tone. So I use first the sharp 4 just as a passing tone or a leading tone there into the 5th. And then you can kind of hear that resolution of like, 9, 11 into 3. And then again, that sharp 4 being used as a leading tone there to move up to the 5th. I find that the sharp 4 just kind of has a natural pull upwards. It sounds a little awkward, I think, when you use it descending, but that's kind of what the natural 4 is there for. It has a more strong or stronger pull descending. So that sort of sound versus. It's important, I think, to play around with tendency tones when you're trying to get scalar language into your playing. Every note in the scale is going to have a certain pull to it and is going to want to move in a specific direction. For the final tip, we're going to take a look at the etude on Bolivia. First, we'll listen to it, and then I'll kind of break down what's going on. This one is going to make use of a concept we've talked about already, which is going to be the substitute progression, but more specifically a constant structure substitute progression. So what I mean by constant structure is we have one chord type that's going to be moving around in a specific like intervallic pattern. So Bolivia's the A section is kind of centered around this just static G7 chord. And then the second half of it is kind of composed of all of these, modulations using 2 5s and sub 5/7 chords. But for this G7, we have a lot of opportunities to kind of take a lot of liberties here, harmonically and melodically. So I'm going to start off with this sort of ascending run that's going to kind of make use of some different G7 sounds. So we're starting off with like an A flat melodic minor or a G altered sound there. And then I use the G flat as a passing tone to get to the root. And then A flat as a passing tone to get to the ninth. But like I mentioned earlier, I like the sound of these passing tones when they fall on strong beats. Kind of has more of a snaky quality to it than when they're on weak beats, for example. Then I use all that chromaticism to get up to B flat, which would be like the sharp 9 in relation to G7. But I use this to pivot into D flat 7. More specifically like a D flat 7 sus sort of sound. And this is going to be a tritone away from our static G7. But instead of playing around with more of those minor third subs, like D flat 7 or E7, I'm just going to move this down in whole steps. Right. I like this sound because John Coltrane would use it quite a bit, especially over static chords. Not only would he do a lot of stuff with substitute progressions derived from all of those like minor third and major third relationships, but sometimes he would just take, one shape and play around with it. And what kind of separates this from the other substitute progressions that we've taken a look at is we're highlighting this in more of like a parallel way. We're just taking the same pattern and moving it down in whole steps, which has a very specific sound to it. All right, everybody, that concludes our video for today. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to dig a little bit deeper into this topic, feel free to check out my latest resource with jazz lesson videos, 24 Vamp etudes. You can find the link in the description below, and you can feel free to use the coupon code VAMP5 for an additional $5 off. I'll see you next time.